Now, you mentioned in the book about circumnavigating the globe.
Whoa, all right. We're opening up. Yep. Well, that's always was my first dream. Okay. I wanted to see the world. I didn't know how. I didn't, maybe biking, maybe whatever, something. I wanted to see the world. Then ultra running came, exploring my realm and this discipline, all of that. And so I was like, why not just run the world?
How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Good. What's happening in the world of GottaRunRacing?
Well, we run the North Virtual off to Fundy National Park in New Brunswick.
That's a nice place.
Yeah, I can't wait to visit one day.
Yep. And the Monarch?
Monarch Relay. We're looking for runners in September, October to do 30 and 50K segments. And our virtual is ticking along quite nicely. We're hoping to have one participant from every state and province.
Nice.
And in Mexico as well, every Mexican state, which would be amazing.
Yeah.
So we need to get the word out.
It's getting there. It's getting there. Cool. So who's on the podcast today?
Really big show today.
Oh.
We have ultra runner Michele Graglia.
Oh, Michele.
See. He is a former top model, and he's currently one of the world's top ultra runners. Since 2011, he's competed in over 30 ultra marathons all over the world, often winning and setting course records. He's set the Guinness World Records for his runs across the Atacama and Gobi deserts. His wins in the Yukon Arctic Ultra with temperatures below -40 Fahrenheit and the Badwater 135 Miler in Death Valley with highs above 130 Fahrenheit made him the first person in history to win both the hottest and coldest foot races on Earth. His new book, titled Ultra, has just been released, and today we'll be chatting about the book as well as some of his epic adventures.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear or talk to him about his race in the Yukon, because that would be just way too cold for me. Anything below 15 degrees
Celsius
is dead on winter to me. So you
were wearing a toque yesterday.
Yeah,
come on.
I know, and it was 15 degrees Celsius. So yeah, for him to run -40, 100 miler, crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
Can't wait to hear about that.
Let's get to it.
Coming up.
Buongiorno, come stai?
Molto bene, tu?
Molto bene. Just as an
What
aside,
a pleasure to connect, guys.
So nice to speak with you. I wondered if you were
Likewise.
a tennis fan.
Somewhat. I used to follow more when I was in Italy, but every now and then I watch the big tournaments. Actually, I have a good friend, Fabio Fognini. We're from the same town. We used to play as kids when we were, back in our hometown.
Wow.
So it's fun to see that he's playing in the major league now.
Well, Matteo Berrettini just got his way into the final, and now our Canadian player is playing Djokovic. So it's a big day in tennis.
Wow. Awesome. I'm definitely going to follow that.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the update.
How
are you guys doing?
We're doing great.
We're doing
yeah.
Good. But first, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, Michele.
Thank you so much, guys. It's a pleasure to be here.
Is it okay to call you Mickey?
That sounds great. Much easier for everyone to pronounce.
Thank you. So we first heard of you back in 2017 when our friend Mike Anger ran the Run Iceland stage race with you.
Oh, right. Yes.
And he came home and he said, have you guys heard of this fellow? And we said, no, but we're going to follow him now. And after that, I heard your interview with Billy Yang where you were discussing the book. But the book was only available in Italian. And since then, I've been bugging you every 6 months. When's it coming out in English?
I remember that. Oh, thank you so much. It's definitely been a process to get to this point, be able to adapt the manuscript to English and finally get it out. It definitely took a solid couple of years of work. Just, you know, it's just a different, it wasn't just a translation, it was the adaptation of it.
Sure.
Certain way of saying, you know, needed to be smooth, you know, kind of smoothed out to English and all of that to make it more, you know, understandable. But I'm very happy and very proud that finally it's out, and so far we're receiving great feedback, so I couldn't be more thankful.
That's awesome. So without giving too much away, we'll touch on a few elements of the book, as well as your running achievements since the book was written and what's next.
Yes.
So you were born in San Remo, Italy, which is on the western border near France, and you ran
That's
a
right.
little bit in school, but not so much.
Yeah, I started a little bit of a track when I was 12, 13 years old, but that was about it.
That was about it. And post-secondary, so after high school, you went into pre-law, but you didn't stick with that for too long.
That's right.
And you worked in your family business as a floral importer, which allowed you to travel around the world. Exporter. My apologies.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
You were traveling a lot at that time, and you had a lot of responsibilities.
Yeah.
And when you came to the U.S. to expand the business, within the first week in Miami, you were signed to a modeling contract with one of the top agencies.
Yep. You put it pretty smoothly, pretty nicely. Yeah, better than I could.
And there's a lot of detail about that in the book, which is great because it sort of sets the tone as to how you got to running. So
yep.
in a pretty short time, it's fair to say, as you do, you were completely immersed in the world of high fashion, and it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Right?
Pretty much.
Pretty much. Okay. So the first thing that popped into my mind when I was reading that section in the book was, how did your family react to your sudden change in direction when you were in the States to work on the family business, and then this amazing opportunity came up? It sounds like they are a very supportive family, but how did they react to that sudden switch?
Yeah, now you're not going to promote their business or grow their business.
Right.
They may be wondering what's going on here.
Exactly, guy dropping. Well, absolutely. You said it right. I have I have a wonderful relationship with my parents, which I'm extremely grateful for, and they always been very understanding of my choices. Of course, it was a setback for the business, but, I wasn't the only salesperson in the company. Of course, we've been working on different markets from, Japan, Korea, China, all over Europe, South America, US, Canada, all of that. So I was, a piece of the puzzle.
Right.
Of course, I didn't just, shut the door right away. Mm-hmm. I kind of eased out of it. But the modeling opportunity, the modeling career came as a wonderful opportunity. Not only, on a financial level, but also on a personal level. It opened up the opportunity for myself to follow a path that was my own, which ultimately was what I was looking for all along. And so, coming to the States and expanding the business almost represented that opportunity to me. Mm-hmm. But then being scouted by a modeling agent and being catapulted, thrown into this whole new world, that at the very beginning, right that day, kind of materialized the opportunity for me to create that path that I was looking for. Even though it wasn't necessarily what I was dreaming, it was never my dream, but hey, that doesn't happen often, right?
You live once.
Exactly. So I'm like, I'm gonna take this wave and see where it takes me. And so I gotta tell you, for the following, here we're talking about fall 2007. Mm-hmm. For the following 2, 3, 4 years, it did represent, and it did indeed was something special.
Right.
Until it wasn't.
About this chapter of rock and roll and sex, drugs, rock. When I read the book, and the part, just for the people who have not read your book yet, the part where you're dancing on tables with P. Diddy and Madonna comes up to you and presses your abs as a greeting.
Don't tell too much.
I don't want to say too much, but that just gives the idea of what lifestyle you're actually living here.
Oh yeah. And I mean, like, I gotta tell you, I come from a very safe and small environment. I grew up in this 5,000 souls little town in the inlet of Italy. Everybody's friends, and it was a clean environment. I get thrown into this, I come to Miami, I get thrown into this industry. You're swept off your feet by the social life and the socialites and the celebrities and everything that comes with it. Because, at that point, becoming a model, you represent something and people want you here, people want you there. Right. And so, I started kind of, I was 24, 25 years old. And I'm like, I mean, this is like a movie. This is like things you see in the movies. I'm like, okay, I'm going to the fanciest clubs, the fanciest restaurants. Everybody wants you here. Everybody wants you there. I got friends sending me Rolls Royce to pick me up to go to the top parties and stuff like that. And I'm like, hey, you feel like the king of the world for a minute. You feel like you got everything in hand and you're just, living it up. There is a downside to that. After a while, though, it becomes, I don't know, at least for me, it became soul sucking completely. Right. Like it was depleting my spirit. On a materialistical and physical level, it was pleasing at all levels. If we want to get in details, but it was pleasing at all levels. But, it came a point where I started to kind of get back into myself and reevaluate what I was doing with my life. And that brought me to my breaking point.
If we fast forward to 2009, when you decided that this is it, I'm going to look for something else in life, something more meaningful. And you came across Ultramarathon Man by Dean Karnaz, the book.
That's right.
And then a couple years later, your first step out the door is New Year's Day. Right?
That's right.
And
you got the dates right.
Yeah. We tried to do our homework. But we read the book.
Did, yeah.
We read the book.
Right.
So you get home from that run, and in typical, you're not an ultra runner yet, but in typical ultra runner fashion, what do? You sign up for 100 miler. And when is the 100 miler? In 5 months.
You see,
in 5 months, yeah.
You had the mind of an ultra.
You did.
You have a mind
exactly,
of an
ultra. Exactly. It just spoke to me, like, change is always difficult. There's no denying it. But we all know just, it's a necessary part to evolve and grow. I found myself in the most critical time of my life. And as you said, it was a golden ticket, but that lifestyle really brought me to the bottom of the pit. And at that point, it came a very critical night, a very critical situation where I had to literally pick myself up and needed to find something different. Mm-hmm. So when I read Dean's book, it wasn't the first thing I read. I knew that my calling was towards, nature and exploration and adventure. So there was already a sense of direction, but I didn't know what it was. Right. So I was very much fascinated about all of these adventures, big mountain climbers and, so on and all different directions, but none of them spoke to me. When I read Dean's book, it was like lightning, the bubble lighting was lit up. and I'm like, okay, I don't know why, but I gotta try this out. I gotta be part of this. I want to see what he's talking about. Because of course, at the time here, we're talking about the end of 2010. Of course, I knew about marathons. I knew about Ironmans. I knew about all of that stuff, but I never heard of ultramarathons. I never heard about this guys running 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus marathons in a row nonstop. I mean, that obliterated all the concept, the limitations and the boundaries that we set for ourselves, at least in the past.
Right.
And so to me, it was so fascinating, so inspiring that I'm like, okay, I'm not a runner, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it. He's talking about the fact that ultra running is beyond running. So if I'm not a runner, I can do it. It makes sense, right? So I did sign up indeed for that 100 miler, and in just the 5 short months, I gutted it out because I went through, I started ramping up my mileage recklessly. I started running, 100, 120, 140 miles a week just before the race. And, I told the line already tired pretty much, but I was ready. I was ready physically, at least in a way. I didn't know though what I was getting myself into. And, and if you want me to fast forward 84 miles into the race, I passed out cold. My family, I woke up in an ambulance. My dad was trying to take my tongue out of my throat because I was choking. Jeez. And my mom, my sister, my now wife were out there crying, begging me to stop. And that's where it all started. So now we're here.
Did you ever get a chance to tell Dean that he was your inspiration?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Many, many times. I even just mailed him a copy just last week with a very nice note. And, I have the opportunity to meet the guy a few years ago and connect. And, we've been somewhat in touch throughout the years. And, to the day, he's still my greatest inspiration.
And has it hit you yet that you're now going to be inspiring a new generation of ultra runners? Because it's inevitable. It's going to happen. That's what I think the biggest blessing lies into. I'm beyond grateful to be able to share my stories, get the book out, because I just realized how powerful inspiration can be. Absolutely.
Back 10 years ago, the power of inspiration not only changed my life, but it actually saved it. And so now being in this position, I find it to be an absolute privilege.
The sport of ultra is for everyone, where the woman can beat the men, the old can beat the young, and no matter of the time, everyone has the same experience because you did the same course. So
that's exactly right. Some can be a little faster, some can be slower, but we all went through the same thing and experienced the same thing. So that's why I think it creates so much camaraderie too. Mm-hmm. We all know what we endured, and I don't want to say sympathize, but we support each other through that. And that's beautiful. That's beautiful because it destroys the concept of, competition and the concept of, cutthroat competitiveness that you can find in other sports or in most sports. So it makes it a shared party. Of course, you have the faster people, you have some people that go a little slower, but we all went through the same.
You could always talk about, do you remember this section of the course? Yes, I do. So,
oh, yeah.
So you can talk about the same thing.
That's absolutely right. Yep. And we can all relate to the hardship of it.
That's right.
And how we made it through. And I think that fire is something that stays with you beyond that finish line. It's something that stays, and you can, it's so powerful that you can, it's something so amazing that you cannot buy anywhere and nobody can ever take it away from you.
Right. So you've achieved some pretty amazing goals in races in extreme heat and extreme cold.
Yes.
How are you able to thrive in those environments? Because I assume at the time you were living in California, so you could visit Death Valley to get the heat training.
The heat, yeah.
But there's nothing quite like the Yukon.
I can agree to that. Yes, there's nothing like the Yukon. When you hit sub 30, sub 40, oh boy. Now there's nothing you can replicate. I train through the winter here. We have some big mountains, but nothing that goes below zero. Mm-hmm. I mean, below Fahrenheit 0.
Right.
So yeah, it gets freezing, but when you go into teens already, it's considered freezing cold out here. Well, in the Yukon, you're dipping in sub 20, sub 30, sub 40 Fahrenheit. That's the completely different kind of environment. I think that going into this, I approach that challenge the same way I do with all the other ones, accepting the fact that I'm going into the unknown, mm-hmm. and accepting that there's going to be struggle, accepting that things are going to go wrong, accepting that I'm not in control. And just going with this mindset and perspective allows me to open up my mind and be present on what needs to be done and what I need to take care of in every single moment. So it's almost like a circle, it creates presence and it allows you to live in a present moment because you have to be present. Otherwise, if you make a mistake, you're going to die.
So I want to ask you about the Yukon then specific, because would you ever put yourself in that situation again? Because that was you were in serious trouble there, or the after effects of the Yukon race.
I certainly was. Well, that was, I got to tell you, my very first experience in that type of environment. I have explored my boundaries a little more in the past few years. I definitely took a lot of knowledge from that experience and mistakes that I made that I wouldn't make again.
Right.
It was definitely horrendous. I mean, I finished when my cornea was frozen, my throat, my trachea, my stomach was frostbitten inside. I couldn't eat properly for 2 or 3 months afterwards.
Wow.
I started eating like baby food and smoothies and stuff like that because everything that went down my throat was just just terrible, just painful. It took me like a couple of months to start eating solid foods again. But, that in a way is what I signed up for. And I paid a price for almost like the first race I did in the Keys, for my ignorance in the matter,
Right.
I wish I had known more people that have done stuff like that, people that would have been able to kind of, I don't want to say teach me, but kind of, open up the door and tell me, okay, this is what you need to pay attention to. This is what you need to be careful, about. Just to tell you how terrifying that race is, the following year, so 2017, the year after I ran it, an Italian friend of mine, which I ran a few races with in the past, he was inspired by my race. And so he signed up. He went up there. He had a lot of troubles. Mm-hmm. He was evacuated after being stranded for 17 hours in the ice.
Jeez.
Wow.
He was evacuated with an airplane. And 2 weeks later, they cut both his arms and both his legs off.
Oh my gosh. That's tragic.
Same race.
Planning on doing the other 2 desert crossings?
Thanks for the question. That's a great question. And that's a exactly, finger crossed. Yes. I got to tell you, it was a huge setback, of course, last year for everybody.
Yeah.
Everything was closed. So we had to postpone those, after the Atacama and the Gobi, I had in mind to do the Sahara and the Antarctica. Mm-hmm. The Sahara kind of fell because of political and religious, situation in the center, especially Niger, Chad, those areas that were, very heated up at that time. Mm-hmm. And so I had switched my focus towards Antarctica. But of course, then, COVID hit, and now they're basically still shut off because Antarctica, I think, is the only continent that hasn't had a case. And they want to keep it that way. And I understand it. I respect that.
Sure.
So, this past year, it was, of course, a bit of a limbo for everybody. I was thankful that I was able to at least nail the Moab and get a run in. But this year, still things are uncertain. And so I decided to create a new challenge, to set up a new journey. And so in October this year, I would like to go for the Transcon, running from San Francisco to New York. So that's going to be the next challenge. Hopefully, the situation, everything going on in our world right now will allow it to happen. And I'm looking forward to that.
Did Dean do that himself? Didn't Dean?
Dean did something similar. He didn't necessarily follow the record route, which is the one that Giannino set in the 80s. Pete Kostanek, he broke the record in 2016. I know for a fact, because I spoke to him on his podcast just a few weeks ago, Zach Bitter is going for the record in September. So I'm going to be trailing him in October. And, I'm excited to be honest with you. Of course, the record is in mind because I like to, it allows me to kind of push myself, but I'm getting out on the road to live the experience and see what I can do.
Right.
How far I can go, how fast I can go across this beautiful country of ours.
Now, you mentioned in the book about circumnavigating the globe.
Whoa, all right. We're opening up. Yeah. Well, that's always been, you remember before when we were talking about after having that crisis, having had that bottom, hitting the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
I started dipping my nose in exploration and adventure. That was my first dream.
Okay.
I wanted to see the world. I didn't know how. I didn't, maybe biking, maybe whatever, something. I wanted to see the world. Then ultra running came, exploring my realm and this discipline, all of that. And so I was like, why not just run the world?
Right.
Where does your mind go when you go on these long runs, especially across the desert? What do you think about, and where do your thoughts go?
I think, again, when I go in these things, I practice meditation. I practice mindfulness. I practice presence. I try not to get involved in too many thoughts. I get carried, we all get carried away by outside influences, by thoughts that come in our minds, and those pollute our environment, our mental psyche, our stability, our strength, even, because all those thoughts, they always just like cannonballs to yourself and to your balance. And so to me, doing these things, it's about disconnection from the outside world and connection within. So I don't think about how far I have to go. I don't think of how hard it's been to get to this point, but I just try to live fully in the present and enjoying what I'm doing for what it is. I'm out there pushing myself and seeing the beautiful nature. That's as simple as that.
It sounds like you're more into the journey and adventure rather than racing. Like, I'm going to go do hard rock. I'm going to do UTMB. It's more like, what can the journey be there, or what can the adventure be? Is that right?
That's absolutely right. I consider myself an adventurer more than a runner. I consider myself an explorer more than an ultra runner. I am very much. What's that?
That's what I keep telling when people ask me. I said, I'm an explorer. I'm an adventurer. Yeah, that's what I say.
And I think that's a most appropriate term to what we do, at least to what I'm aiming to do. Just because, racing are a great tool, but they're not the ultimate goal to me. They're an opportunity, but it's not a driving force behind what I do. And that's why I think, starting to do this self-made adventure, desert crossings, cross country, all of these things, they actually fed my soul a lot more. It wasn't about competition. I was out there by myself. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered. It was about exploring my realm and redefining what's possible. That's what fascinates me. I grew up in a very classical environment. I grew up in Italy, studying the Greek mythology. Of course, knowing that Euripides, the poor Greek guy that ran from here to there, he died. And, the Coubertin, you read all these things in the book where we say, okay, this is what the limit was set. Right. But this is just a limit that was set. It wasn't the ultimate limit. If they told you, okay, the marathon is the ultimate limit beyond which the human body cannot go, for the longest time, we all believed it. Just like in the past, we believed so many other stories that defined our space, right? Yep. And throughout the years, throughout the centuries, throughout the time, we were able to redefine those limits because someone had the courage to go beyond them. And just like that, that's what ultra running represented to me. It represented the opportunity to redefine what's possible and not only see, what was more fascinating is the fact that I could be in the position to see for myself how far I can actually go. It's a wonderful journey, I got to tell you. It's a wonderful journey of exploration, of growth. And I couldn't be more privileged to be part of it.
So Badwater is coming up. How are you feeling going into Badwater, which is next week, I think?
Just over. Well, today is Friday, so it's next Monday, the 19th. So just about 10 days.
So how are you feeling going in?
I'm I'm feeling good.
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 I'm feeling good. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
I'm going to leave it at that. Then if you like, we can connect after the race. We can talk more about it.
There we go. What do you like to do in your downtime? Non-athletic. So not yoga, not running. What would you do with your wife on a Sunday afternoon? You had some free time.
Well, in this past year, we've been remodeling our home up here in Big Bear, so that definitely took a bit of, that took a bit of time. It also created a great connection between the two of us. We got an extra dog, and so we'd go on hikes. We're very active. I love to read. I love to, to be honest with you, this past year, there hasn't been much downtime at all.
No.
So I cannot really relate to the question. I haven't been, I usually, I'm a person that loves to read. Like I usually have about 4 or 5 books on my nightstand that I go through in a relatively fast manner. But this past year, I haven't been able to finish one book.
That says everything.
And that's me being totally honest. I started 3 or 4, and I haven't been able to finish one.
Wow.
I've had we got the house. I'm focused on training. I launched my book. All these little things take a lot of time. And when the, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night comes, I'm like lights out. There's not much imagination around that,
Well, we definitely encourage all of our listeners to pick up a book. They can get an Audible copy, Amazon, I guess, or via your website, michelegraglia.com, which we'll put in our video. And we'd like to thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you. Norm reminded me, we've only been podcasting for about 7 months now. And in our first podcast, we just chatted with each other about what our goals were. And when he asked me who would be your number one person to speak with, it was you. So in a short period of time.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was you.
This is wonderful.
So
that is so amazing. Thank you so much. Well, it's been a great pleasure to talk with you guys, and thank you so much.
Well, we want to end with a couple rapid fire questions. Okay, if you don't mind. All right, here we go. Do you lose your toenails when you run?
I have a few times, but not too bad. Like if I show you my feet right now, you wouldn't believe I'm a runner.
Really?
They're actually in pretty good shape.
What's your favorite type of music?
Oh boy. I mean, I spent, if I have you listen to my Spotify or my iPod, I mean, you wouldn't believe it. I spent from Pavarotti to Lil Wayne to Steve Aoki to hardcore, dance. I have a bit of everything. So I have pop, cheesy pop. I have Katy Perry. I mean, I'm a bit on everything.
Favorite international city?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Well, I'm probably gonna go with Paris.
Okay. That's a good answer. Are you superstitious?
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay.
Not at all. Yeah.
If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
Wow, these are good questions. I like them. I was not expecting it. That's a very good question. I mean, as I said before, I was very much fascinated with the Greek mythology. So I would say about 2,500 years ago.
Yeah, run with what's his name?
Philippides. That's right.
You two run together. Yeah,
exactly. That'd be a good one.
Okay, last question. This one's more of a funny one. What language do you curse in? So when you stub your toe on the trail, it's
oh, there's a big F-bomb there.
Awesome.
Good.
Well, thank you so much.
Guys, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much.
We really appreciate it. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Guys, it's been an awesome conversation. Great interview.
And good luck at Badwater.
Yeah, all the best at Badwater.
We'll be following.
Thank you so much. We'll connect afterwards.
Sounds good. Take care.
All right. Enjoy your day. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Right. We got Mickey on. It was one of our first guest that we were hoping to get on our first podcast.
That's right. And he did not disappoint.
No.
What a nice guy.
Yes. First of all, I want to tell you about his book. Personally, is that I'm not a reader. You know, I'm not a reader. If you say, read this, it's like, I'm not going to read it. Just give me the Coles notes or let me listen to it. But what I liked about Ultra specifically was two things. One, I liked there was a quote in the beginning of each chapter. I like quotes. And two, the chapters were direct and to the point, which is what I liked. I felt like, I read 20 chapters today, which is great.
You read it in 2 days.
No, I think I read it in one day. I don't know, but it was.
Yeah, it was a quick.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was a book that I have not read a book in how many years, but it was a good read for me. I highly recommend it, and
very inspirational. I think I went out for a run every time I put the book down because I just wanted to experience what he was talking about. So once you've read Ultra, let us know what you thought.
Cheers.